Yesterday, at the White House, Donald Trump presided over what he heralded as the diplomatic breakthrough uh, of the decade, a joint peace declaration between Armenia and Azerbaijan after more than 35 years of intermittent war over Nagorno-Karabakh. And the ceremony was heavy on symbolism, handshakes, Nobel Peace Prize endorsements, and the christening of a new transport corridor with the unlikely title of Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity. This agreement promises trade, transit, and a permanent cessation of hostilities, but beneath the guilt, there's a troubling omission: the fate of political prisoners, including the high-profile Armenian philanthropist and former Nagorno-Karabakh state minister, prime minister, Ruben Vardanyan, seized by Azerbaijan in 2023 while travelling along what was supposed to be a safe road to Armenia. Reports suggest he's been mistreated. I've seen photographs. It looks as if he's been tortured in custody. If peace is to have any legitimacy, these cases cannot be left in the shadows, and political prisoners must be released. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is not simply a frozen border dispute. It's a tangle of identity, trauma, and forced displacement. The 2023 Azerbaijani offensive that recaptured the territory triggered the flight of over 100,000 ethnic Armenians, and many of those who remained, including political figures and activists, were arrested. Some have been held in undisclosed locations. Others, like Vardanyan, are paraded in state media as trophies of war. This is where peace processes often falter. They settle maps, corridors, and trade routes, but fail to address the human beings still in prison cells. Trump, Aliyev, and Pashinyan spoke in grand terms about ending enmity forever. Yet peace is not merely the absence of bullets. It's the restoration of dignity and rights, and that means releasing prisoners who were detained in the context of the conflict, especially those seized under dubious legal pretexts. The British historian A.J.P. Taylor once said, "Nothing is inevitable until it happens." And the same applies here. Reconciliation will not happen if one side's heroes and leaders are left in captivity, subject to allegations of torture. Ruben Vardanyan's arrest is emblematic. A billionaire philanthropist turned politician, he crossed into Azerbaijani-controlled territory in September 2023 after the fall of Stepanakert, trusting assurances of safe passage. Within hours, he was detained. His family alleges ill treatment. Azerbaijani officials claim he faces criminal charges for financing separatism. Ruben, I know. I know is a good man. And if this peace deal is genuine, the path to trust begins with cases like his. Releasing him and others would cost Azerbaijani little in strategic terms, but pay immense dividends, improving goodwill. And from the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland to the Camp David Accords, prisoner releases have been critical in transforming ceasefires into lasting peace. They serve both symbolic and practical purposes, removing rallying points for nationalist anger and demonstrating that enemies can also be partners in the future. Failure to include this element risks the peace becoming what British diplomat Harold Nicholson once called a crisp document between two warmongers. President Aliyev may see holding high-profile prisoners as leverage, but leverage cuts both ways. As long as Vardanyan and others remain in detention, Armenia's opposition and diaspora will have a rallying cry, lobbying Western governments to treat the peace as cosmetic. That could slow down investment, sour US congressional attitudes, and invite human rights conditionality on trade agreements. Prime Minister Pashinyan, for his part, risks domestic backlash if he celebrates the White House deal while leaving compatriots behind bars. Peace without honour is a recipe for political fragility, especially with elections due in 2026. He must insist privately and publicly on the return of prisoners as a condition for deeper cooperation. Trump is keen to frame this as his Nobel Peace Prize moment. If that's truly his ambition, he should recall that the Nobel Committee often looks not only for the cessation of hostilities, but also tangible human rights progress. A US-brokered release of detainees like Vardanyan would transform this accord from a thing on a map exercise, into a human story, one far harder to dismiss as self-promotion. When the earthquake took place in Armenia some 10, 15 years ago, it was Vardanian who leapt to the process of rebuilding the areas. He built schools, he rebuilt churches, he worked tirelessly to restore the country, and so I think the Armenian community would greatly value his return, and this is potentially a turning point in the South Caucasus. The Trump route may indeed carry goods and travellers between Baku and to Armenia, but unless it also carries the freed men and the women who symbolize the unfinished business of this war, the route will be a corridor of convenience, not of reconciliation, and peace without the release of political prisoners is a peace without honour, and peace without honour, as history teaches us, does not endure.